because you know why?
Why?
Because it feels right.
It feels right.
Legendary.
B. That's the middle.
38.
That's
30.
that's the middle.
B and E, right?
B, well,
You wanna stay-
unless you're on a little plane, and then
Yeah.
it could. Well, then there's only two, so there is no middle. There you go. That's right.
Yeah, those are the better ones. Welcome,
Robert. We have
We're
a lot
doing
to
it.
talk about. We have a lot to talk about.
Is this our first podcast of 2024?
I believe it is.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, Adam.
Happy New Year. We got some. I like these.
We
We
made
got some
it.
nice logos and stuff on our background. I like that.
That's just, modern contemporary art. You're welcome.
Robert, I think you were ready to go yesterday because I think you had a gallon of coffee and got freaky on Twitter. That's what I noticed. As you saw like 10 posts for you. I had too much baby crap going on, but I was like, this man is caffeinated and he is talking to the people about pickle right now.
I'll tell you what, when you get going on Twitter, it's kind of fun. So
yeah. It's I hardly even go on the other ones now. I try to manage my social media, but you can get carried away on Twitter and get stuck scrolling. That's for sure.
let's talk about social media just for a second, because I think Twitter is just an underutilized platform for pickleball. I think there's so much on Instagram of and it's all the same stuff. It's all the same highlight reels and highlight shots and it's repetitive. It's pretty boring. It doesn't get me engaged, and I'd rather read stuff that people say on Twitter. It's just
I'd rather chat too. I dip my toe in that water occasionally, but I
like when you get on the Twitter.
Yeah, it just depends. But I think I might do it a bit more as well because the Instagram stuff is garbage. I mean, the only reason you want to go on there is to watch a couple of good points, and I'm commentating the event. I've already seen them, so it's thanking a couple sponsors, good vibes from the crowd. Can't wait for the next one. As someone who's locked into the pickleball community, that's pretty much garbage to me. Maybe a casual fan, it's much more important too.
And on Twitter, it's perfect for short quips, which you're excellent at.
I would say, Robert, that I'm a distant number 2 to you, as you got to have the witty quips. Gartman never answered you. I mean, he put some detailed stat on there, and you said you're not censored by Big Pickle anymore, and no response. Maybe you froze him out again.
I'm sorry, Joshua. I'm sorry. Come back. If they let you come back, please.
We like your stats. It's
no,
good. I don't want to dig deep. I don't want to dig deep for those. If Gartman's doing it, that's all good.
No, it was super fun to when he was in the thick of it all last year, posting real-time stats and tournaments and stuff. It was like, this is fantastic. Because nobody else is doing it. Somebody else, if it's not going to be you, Joshua, if Big Pickle's got you in a room somewhere, blink twice, but let's get somebody else on it then.
I mean, there's always someone else coming up. So we've talked about how the randoms are in prominent positions. So all you nerds out there, numbers guys, throw us some stats. Maybe you'll get a job.
I mean, it is wild. We talk about this, Adam. It's like you post for a month and then you have a GM job. it's something else.
Well, I mean, and these people, or half of them, paid $400,000 to be in Premier. It's if they're going to pay $400,000 to get in Premier, and they can pay $50,000 or less for a well-connected coach or GM or somebody like that, they should be doing it if you think about the percentages and the money that they're spending. So, come on.
All right, Big. We had a.
Yeah.
You can't say no. Go.
I was just going to start it off with you can hear the tone of my voice. The MLP draft pushed back again. Things seem to be on track for a merger, but as things get pushed back or delayed, it doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy inside necessarily about everything. So I believe the date now is end of January. And Robert, I believe that there is an event scheduled for Los Angeles on February 7th. So things are getting really squeezed and tight with some of the timelines, and it makes me a little bit worried.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's that all of the MLP signed players that haven't signed a new agreement, to my knowledge, like what they told me is that they're stopping all contract talks until after the merger is complete, which means, I think to my knowledge, they have 100 odd contracts that need to be renegotiated and signed and countersigned, and that, let's say the merger happens, optimistically, call it January 27th, right? Your first event in LA for the 12 challenger teams, I believe, is the February 8th weekend, February 7th, 8th, something like that. So we're supposed to have 100 of these contracts signed and countersigned, terms agreed to, have the draft so players know if they actually have to be in LA, and have all of this worked out, but like in such a tight window. Yeah, not optimistic with that. I think it's even at this point, I think it's unreasonable to have the event in LA based on players not knowing if they're having to travel in like 3 weeks now, less than 3 weeks. So somebody that has a side contract, I'm not feeling too, I don't know, optimistic and pumped and happy that this is all happening. But
yeah, and that's player perspective, and which people care much more about than brass, which I guess I am now. But it's tough here too, with kind of figuring out a draft, thinking about strategy, and possibly drafting. And the SoCal Hard Eights are in Challenger, and that's the first event, and that's a possibility of 6 roster spots. So not only the 4 playing, but maybe some upside picks or single specialist or whatever. I mean, that's a lot of research into a player pool that is deeper and deeper. And even someone who is very involved as a commentator and a fan, like I am, that's a lot of players to know about, and who's going to make those jumps and those leaps, and who you want on your squad. So it's squeezed for sure. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and player pool is a good point, because I think that's also a big question right now, and I think that's some of the stuff that's trying to be worked out in terms of the merger. Is these PPA players have contracts that don't state that they need to play 8 MLP events or MLP events at all. It says team-based events, and I think it's listed at 6. So, right now the MLP season is 8 events with one additional 9 if you're in the playoffs or you make it. So for these PPA players that, 1, don't want to play MLP, or 2, have to, but definitely don't want to play more than their contractual amount, will they, what's that look like in terms of draft? Like are you going to draft somebody that only has 6 events in their contract?
Yeah, no, it's scary. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I can't imagine that it's not cleaned up before something gets done, but it's a wild situation right now. And this is guaranteed money, and this is contract stuff. Of course, the players want to play less, and the PPA players as well. So does if you do go from that 6 to the 9, do you have to squeeze out 3 PPAs? Do you just add to the events that you're already playing with the contract that you have signed with the PPA? And I'm not exactly sure, but either way, it's some dominoes need to fall so we can figure out what's possibly going to happen here.
What's really wild, Adam, is that, from everything I've heard, I don't know the details, but from everything I've heard is that it's not a very favorable deal for team owners. MLP team owners.
Less and less. Yeah, less and less. It seems to just something gets pulled back, or something needs to be changed, or maybe there was some form of possible deal not signed, met, and then the terms possibly change. So I kind of, the vibe that I've gotten as well is that it is slowly been worse and worse for MLP owners, and that is absolute hearsay, but that's what I'm hearing.
But pretty wild to think that you can be getting the worst side of the deal, merging with this entity. And not only that, but you don't even get access to their players for all of your events. It's an issue.
Yeah, I just don't like what can happen. Like I don't get it in terms of how can you draft these players that could possibly not play all your events. And I don't know if you bake that into their price and their cost on draft day. But something has to get figured out with that. And yeah, if it's just a partial deal, that is going to make the draft even more of a wild situation when it's already going to be hard enough to value these players getting better so quickly. Not only that, you have an auction draft in the premier level, and then you have to bake in possibly some players not playing all of them, and some players who, even though they don't have to contractually do it, are willing to do that. You have to have all the information on the table, or you're going to make a bad decision out there.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to see just in general is I hate this idea of, let's say a player only plays 6, you have 3 other events to play, but that person's not going to play it. I hate the idea of like grabbing somebody from a general player pool or from a challenger person that's already been eliminated, their team. Like, I think these teams should come equipped with a reserve. I think all the teams should probably have 6 players. Then you have a reserve on the men's and women's side for both. You can put somebody in for singles. You can put somebody in for mixed if you want to. And then you have like a real unit, and you're being able to pool reserves that that you've been training with and that's on your team, and versus just pulling from a general population player pool, which just seems weird.
What does that do to Challenger though? How can you do that in Premier? I mean, I know that there's going to be events where all the teams are there, and then there's going to be a lot of events where it's just Challenger or just Premier. So but I mean, if you make the Premier teams deeper, what exactly does that do to Challenger? I guess maybe they could only play when it's a Premier only, or
what do you mean?
How does that work? Well, I mean, it just thins Challenger even more, is what I'm saying. So if you have 6, I mean, obviously your 5th and 6th player, or most likely, if not always, as a Premier team, going to be Challenger level players. If they're just on your roster not playing, how can they play in the Challenger events when all the teams, or the mixed tournaments where both Challenger and Premier are there?
They wouldn't be on Challenger. They wouldn't be on Challenger teams. They'd just be on Premier teams.
They would just be on Premier teams. But I mean, man, that dilutes the Challenger player pool aggressively.
Maybe. I don't know, dude. I play with, like, even being down here. I'm in Naples right now. There's dudes I'm like practicing with down here that are just as good as any Challenger player.
Dudes. That's a big factor. Also,
yeah. So
I think it's less so on the women's side.
Less so on the women's side for sure. But I think even looking at these draws, PPA and APP, I mean, women, like a year ago, 2 years ago, you were having 5 or 6 teams in these women's draws. Now APP this weekend has a significant qualifier. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the PPA has the same, but I mean, we're talking, there has to be 40 plus women's teams signed up. I mean, the depth as we see is like, it's getting stronger and deeper exponentially every single year. So I don't see it being a huge issue in terms of finding the depth.
And I got some numbers for you in the APP men's, between main draw and Challenger for Punta Gorda coming up this weekend, 66 teams. And at the PPA last weekend that I was commentating, I was going to do some notes because that was the afternoon session. I go out there. There is a bank of 4 courts, 4 play-in matches for the females. I believe I knew 5 or 6 of the 16. You got 4 matches of doubles. You got 16 players. I knew 5 or 6 of the 16 women. And they're all like, now I'm older, so it's harder for me in my old age, but they looked like college age girls. So these are younger athletic, kind of talented girls kind of coming into the sport, and I don't even know who they are. That absolutely bodes well for the depth of the players. And they weren't bad. They weren't just out here missing every other ball. They had some very quality points and some good talent. So yeah, it's coming for sure. And to touch on that again at the PPA, some of these play-in men's singles matches were obscene. I mean, these guys are hitting BBs. They are physically imposing 6'3", random guys I've never seen before. So they're coming. They're coming for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's great for the sport. I think there's a lot of talk about tennis players coming over and pickleball players not happy. No, like not anybody I know. I think the more we have that come over, the better. The higher the quality. It pushes everybody's game up. It increases competition. It's better for the sport. It's just you have to get better.
Yeah, so I guess we got slightly off track there, but yeah, how they construct these teams and the situation with the possible extra players. Yeah, the player pool and how deep you have to grab into it is going to be such a huge factor for this MLP draft, and we'll see what they come up with. I know they got a lot of smart guys and gals out there trying to make it work. I know there's a lot of moving parts, but it's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be a big factor for the players and the team owners and GMs drafting their squads.
Yeah, I mean, I know our last podcast we talked about having a lot of questions, not a lot of answers. I mean, I think it's not so different.
Not so different. Maybe we can just sprinkle in 1 or 2 answers on the 50 questions. That's going to be enough. That's about all we're going to be able to do. So wait, so you are telling me that there was a situation where Vivian Glausman was supposed to be playing the APP Punta Gorda coming up, and she was unable to do so from a contract situation?
I think from a permission situation. I heard that a league tour organization did not grant her permission to play it, I suppose.
Okay, and her fill-in is Georgia Johnson?
Yeah, so Vivian was supposed to play with Paris Todd in women's doubles and Yates Johnson in mixed. And now just looking at the draw or the entrance, you have Georgia Johnson filling in and playing with Yates and Paris.
And they're both MLP. They both signed MLP, correct? Interesting. Okay. Yeah. No.
As far as I know, maybe Vivian signed a new contract and that restricts her. I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
But definitely interesting. I mean,
yeah, off the top of my head, I mean, they both signed MLP and that was a while ago. So of course things could have happened since then from a contract perspective, but that it's not necessarily that she can't play. It's who's filling in for her. That is interesting to me,
No, totally. I think, of the players that if you're paying somebody a ton of money that you want to keep in your league, it'd probably be Georgia.
Do you know who Will Howells is?
Yeah, he plays a lot of the APPs. Played him a lot of times.
Yeah, he's. I just saw him partnering with CJ Klinger here, and I recognize the name, but I don't know much about him.
Yeah, he down in like the Delray Boca area, and. Yeah, he played. I think he played tennis at Notre Dame. He's a solid player. He's a good player.
So here's a question for you. Now, I obviously should know this as a MLP GM, but what is the situation for players that signed nothing?
You play APPs. You play all 12, and if you get to the quarterfinals, you're making money.
Okay, and what is players that have signed nothing and their availability for the MLP draft? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, from what I've heard for 2024 anyways, is that you have to be a signed player to be eligible for the draft pool, which I don't know. I get it because you're paying these people money and you want them they need to be on a team, right? But like if you have a great player that's unsigned, like they should be eligible for a team. They should be eligible to, to get a contract. If they get drafted, they're obviously good enough to be on contract. So, yeah, I know there's not more money to spend on player contracts. We're trying to spend less money, but at the same time, it limits the emerging talent, and I think it's a disservice to the league.
I mean, just being at the PPA this past weekend, I can think of two handfuls of players that are not signed that I'm fairly excited about, or absolutely are on my radar for a possible, maybe not a first or second round challenger situation, but absolutely at the back half of that draft. So that,
especially with 6 players per team. I mean,
yeah, for sure. So I mean, like I said, I should probably know the situation on that, but I don't. So I'm gonna have to check on that, as that massively affects the player pool, especially when, maybe not snap of your fingers, but some guy can go from 4 or 5 to relevant in like 3 or 4 months these days, given their talent and how committed they are, how much court time they're putting in,
and where you're able to, like Howells, for example, he's training in Delray and Boca. Like, you're around such good practice that it doesn't take that long if you're able to get in those groups.
Yeah, just like say someone, I think this is more of a known commodity, but say someone like Jack Monroe. I know he has a lot of talent, and he's playing with Thomas and Deckel and these guys almost every day, if not almost every day, if not every day. If you think someone like that, even though he's been playing for a while, that has athletic talent and is playing with literally top 10, top 15 players every single day, if you think he can't make a leap or a jump into a very prominent draft position, you're absolutely crazy.
Jack Monroe is the reigning English Open champion.
Boom. What about Louis Laville?
No, Jack stole that title.
Jack
stole that title.
I don't know. I will randomly see him do some crazy stuff on Instagram. So he just kind of pops up and does some athletic shot or move that I have never even considered doing in my entire career. So it's cool. I like it.
But it's also, it's a blessing and the curse. When you're blessed with that much talent and ability, you can have too many options, right? And I think that's
the dreaded.
I don't have that issue.
Not an issue at all. Just I could have done this. No, actually, I could not have done that. I'm just gonna go ahead and bunt that ball back in play and see what happens. All right.
Let somebody else do something athletic with that.
Yeah. Let someone else do something special. That's for sure. Okay, but let's. I've already brought up the PPA this past weekend a few times as I was there doing commentary, and it was a cool vibe. Very short break, month at the most, maybe 3 weeks for some players. But there was some energy and some just maybe a little more happiness amongst the player pool for the first event of the year, and some really interesting factors that we don't see at these standard tournaments. We got a different serve and some serve rules. We have no devices on the sideline. You have, some of the tennis players, the main two that they're focusing on is Sock and Genie Bouchard, even though Donald Young looked pretty solid in a couple of his matches and his results. I know I'm missing something else, but what do you think? Did you watch anything at all, or what do you think about a handful of these new rules that we're trying out on the PPA Tour?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm curious on your take on a lot of it, actually being there and kind of hearing the buzz around it. But so you said no devices. That I didn't realize that. So you're not allowed to have like a phone on at your bench.
Correct. So phone, Apple Watch, any of that is all a no-go. So
I saw Leia during singles go over to the bench and
I believe that is I believe that's just sugar situation. So she checks she checks her phone to check on her levels.
Me
so
too.
I of course would imagine that is a special situation and a special circumstance that's okay for her.
Yeah.
So
no, that makes sense.
I did also see that from her. And then, of course, we have a new ball, which is a massive deal. And I would say maybe a couple mixed reviews from the ball, but I think overall it was not as bad as some people would think, given pro players don't like change. So I think there was possibly some talk about it getting out of round too quickly, but in terms of ball flight, overall playability, it wasn't players storming off the court and being upset about it. So I like the color, and I think some similarities to the Dura as well. So I think overall the ball was maybe neutral or slightly positive, but of course, when you're talking about players and superstitions and things like this, it's easy to blame outside things for player performance. So I have no doubt that there was a handful of players talking smack about the ball, whether that's real or an excuse for what went on between the lines.
Yeah, but like I said in my tweet, I think when you're a PPA player getting paid these PPA contracts, you just shut up and play. You play with whatever ball they put in front of you, right? Because
yeah, I mean that's true. True.
I think I heard Vulcan deal like 2.5 million. I don't know the number. I saw that somewhere. But if that's the case, that's paying for your salaries, folks. Just suck it up and play with it.
Literally, that's paying for your salaries. So so I think that now there was some stuff on the serve rule, and from what I saw is there was quite a few players who maybe it affected a little bit, maybe it was about the same, and then there was some players that you could definitely see that paddle head speed and the whip through the ball was not quite what it was with the previous rules. So and it was called some, not often, but it was called some on the drop or the toss or the downward trajectory of the ball below kind of a point on your body, hip, waist. There was some controversy about that too, but I don't think it really affected too much out there, as some people think it was going to be a drastic change.
Yeah, I saw it called a couple weird times. Like I think I saw one called on Jack where he's like blatantly like his arm straight down, like his left arm where he's holding the ball is basically straight down, and he's making contact like probably close to his knees, if not below. And I saw one, he released it with his hand a little bit sideways and they called it. But like the purpose of the rule is that you're making contact lower, right? Like you're not able to hit up or toss up and hit it, that subjective waist area. So if you're holding it that low, even if you kind of drop it sideways, it's like just the purpose of the rule is to, not make the serve a huge advantage. So just don't call that. So again, it's just very subjective. So
right.
Let's remove the subjectivity and figure out a way to just make it objective, which, big bounce serve guy over here.
Bounce serve. I think you tweeted something about that as well. But yeah, subjective is tough. And I was thinking, because of course Deckel and Tyson played together and they both have pretty big serves, but just think the difference in waist. So we could be talking, I don't know what it is. Tyson's around 5'10", Deckel's around 6'2", 6'3", but that's a couple inches just from where your waist is that's a pretty big difference actually. So what are you laughing about, Rob?
It is a big deal.
we'll just leave it at that.
You can hit it harder.
You can hit it harder.
Deeper.
So, and I couldn't notice anything from James Ignatowicz's serve. He was just peppering him in there like it was another day at the office. I don't think the rule affected him at all, and I do think it affected Tyson. I just do. So I know I'm not even necessarily talking about how often it gets called on you. It's more just that mental lead up and kind of pulling back a little bit on your serve and not getting that same rotation, spin and power, and of course depth and singles on your serve. Rob,
it's a big deal.
Is a big deal. You love to talk about that.
Hey, you got to hit it. Got to hit it. Got to hit
Gotta
it.
hit it. So we had Genie Bouchard out there.
Why are you laughing at him?
Well, it just didn't look like she played a lot of pickle leading up to the
No.
tournament. Quite a few newbie things that get corrected pretty quickly had not been corrected from her.
Mm-hmm.
So court time lacking, but I did see her after getting knocked out of the tournament. I was the afternoon session of commentary with Dave Fleming. She was out on court with Dave for a couple hours each day, kind of getting some touches. And I think I believe that she's dating the son of Christy Brinkley and Billy Joel. So she is running in heavy social circles. So to see her kind of, not have a great play on court and then come out the next 2 days for a couple hours and work on her game makes me think that there's a good chance she's going to kind of go for it and try to get better. Because I could have seen her just go get whooped up on and just say, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. But it looked like she was making an effort to get some reps and improve her game, which is good in my opinion.
Unless she contractually had to be there for X amount of days.
Well, maybe she did. Maybe she didn't have to get on court and practice though. She could have just sat on the sidelines or just showed up to the venue for a couple hours. I don't know.
Yeah, big props to her for really digging in and pushing herself.
All right, let's other side of the coin here. Jack Sock. Maybe not the full on total court time that he needs to be a high-end professional pickleball player, but he has played plenty of pickle before this tournament. It showed. Tons of talent out there, made some nice run, beating some very quality players in singles, and looked fine in doubles. Maybe we'll say solid but unspectacular on the doubles court once he got to play some of the top 6, top 8 seeds deeper into the doubles tournament. Did you get to see him play, and what do you think about his game?
Yeah, I watched most of it. I think singles super impressive. To beat Connor. I think there's some nerves for these guys, right? Connor, Jay, just playing Jack Sock, even though it's pickleball, it's like, if Connor didn't play well, I think he'd probably tell you that. But really impressive stuff from Jack in singles, and it just shows that I think, any given week that he's going to be competing for a singles title right out of the gate, which, he's 6'3", he moves better than anybody else on tour already. So to have that coverage in singles and to have that forehand, I mean, he's always going to be dangerous. Doubles, I think that translates to what we always see in mixed, right? It's like, he's got a whippy forehand, and he can just start cracking it at the female and crash and clean stuff up. And yeah, I mean, that works to a certain level, and obviously it worked with AL in North Carolina. But just missing some of the key components of just the mid-court, the softness, the consistency. And I think once he dials that stuff in and understands strategy a little bit more, that he's going to be really dangerous.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I understand they've transitioned over Connor Garnett, Jay DeVilliers, these, quality tennis players that are now pickleball players. But it absolutely was a mental factor out there playing Jack Sock. They know who he is. They put in their 10, 12, 15,000 hours of tennis. So, of course, they have respect to someone who has gotten to the top of the game or close to it. And I think that was a big factor mentally, especially in the singles matches. And Jack, he's a showman out there, and he is also someone who is very confident, has a lot of swag, and is trying to get in the heads of these players. I think it's part of the package that he brings to the table.
Yeah.
Just the fact that kind of getting smoked by Riley and Thomas, he was talking till the very end in that match. And I talked to Thomas afterwards, and he was just like, yeah, man, he is definitely very confident, and he was barking when they were down 9-1. So I think that is actually a cool aspect of it, and something that some of these pickleball guys are going to have to get used to. as I don't see Jack's mouth slowing down whatsoever on the PPA tour, especially as the results start to get inch forward on the doubles quarter. They've already kind of been there on the singles, making it a semifinal, first event of the year.
Yeah, what I like is you could tell he's having fun, right? Like this is kind of his this is his retirement like fun gig. And he's making good money and he's getting to play pickleball, and you can't like he's he obviously wants to win, he's competitive, but he's not taking it too seriously and he's just having a good time, and that's I think that shines through and the fans feel it, and it just makes it a very fun, lively atmosphere. So I think we need way more of that. It's pickleball. It's pickleball.
Well, if he wants to run deep in all three events, he might need to take it a little bit more seriously. And I have no idea. I didn't talk to him, but I think he was fairly stiff against Fed. I mean, guy just had a baby. I don't think he's out there, running wind sprints like Christian Alshon, in his off time. So, if I don't care what anyone says about it. It's what is it, 20 by 44 on the dimensions of the pickleball court. If you're playing singles, that is a grind. Lots of bending, lots of lunging, lots of explosive movement. So, you got to be in good shape, and I think that's just every single day that goes by, it's more and more of a factor for these players.
Yeah, I didn't see the sock Fed match. I saw it was a beating. What happened with that one? How did Fed pick him up?
Fed just literally did not miss his
was
inside
it drops or drops.
His Fed's inside out forehand was cooking. At least
like
early,
like dropping or passing.
Passing.
Okay.
So, and Sock just didn't play clean. So it was, and I had a little break and I was eating a sandwich and I was watching the Federico Colin Schick match, and Fed, he did not miss a ball. And I'm not talking about just pushing the ball back in play. He's ripping through, he's rolling drops, and he really didn't miss a ball against Colin Schick. It was a very tough match there. So when I found out that, Dylan Frazier had beaten Fed in the finals, I was shocked because Fed played great against Sock, great against Schick, and just looked like he was untouchable. So for I believe it was 9-3 Fed in game 3, and Dylan Frazier came back. And let's talk about the babyest of Dills for a little bit. The man beats J.W. Johnson in straights, Tyson McGuffin in straights. He beats Kwong Duong and then Federico Staksrud, who's playing as well as I've ever seen him for a non-tennis player. What a run for that man.
Yeah, and I think a big difference from what when I've seen him play singles in the past to singles now is, like Eric Lang said on Twitter, it's dude's got a sick two-handed backhand now that he's getting angles on. He's hitting passes on his backhand, which this is the first tournament where I've actually seen him do that consistently and successfully, and it adds such another element of what you have to cover, of what you think he can do. He could always drive a backhand on the line, but to get it to dip cross court, now you got to cover that, or you're thinking about that. It adds another layer where you're like, oh no. So
yeah, and good for him, because he's been working on that for a year or two. So and I think you're exactly right. Maybe you have one spot that you can flatten it out to early on when you're working on that shot, but to have a little bit of variety to whip through and then possibly take some pace off and go for more spin to line or cross court is, I think, maybe a year or two ago, that's a luxury, and now it's almost a requirement if you want to be in the top 10 men. Jack Sock as well didn't really have a great one, or it's almost like his went from to not too bad in the course of a tournament, his two-handed backhand on the singles court. Yeah. So almost a requirement, and wasn't always like that.
No, and I think Dill even said it. He's like, the toughest part for singles with me not having a tennis background is passing shots, and he's like, usually I like to play cat and mouse. He said this in an interview. Usually I could play cat and mouse, but not so much today, and didn't need to, because he was just hitting clean passes left and right. And his forehand's interesting too. His forehand pass, because it's not like a typical stroke where you're looping and then it's not so good. It's a little bit jerkier. which also is challenging to read because he can. It's like his forehand flick off the bounce from the kitchen. He can disguise it and go different spots. It's not so different from the baseline on his actually forehand drive. Like he can kind of hold it a little bit even from the baseline and take it line or cross court. So I think, yeah, and obviously he's one of the best movers in the game, I think, in terms of his court coverage, and which is really probably the most impressive part for me watching him play singles. Is I think for most tennis guys that come over to play singles, probably your number one attribute outside of your ground strokes is your court awareness and how to cover and how to like read where your opponent is versus like the shot he can hit from that position. And Dylan didn't get any of that, from tennis. It's all situational based on pickleball. So for him to cover as well as he does and anticipate as well as he does is probably the thing that I'm most impressed with his singles game anyways.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And I really think that Selkirk 002 is such a big deal. I talked about it with his doubles game and getting that extra pop, but he does not have the loop like you talked about. And the 002 allows him to get the pace that he needs to while having the deception. The deception is so important. And I think Dylan can go to the spots with the forehand, but I also think his inside out forehand has gotten much better recently. He has always had the cross court, and say in doubles, when he's right side, he always goes, he is so good at going at that right hip of the left side player in front of him. And that's more of a hook or a curl. And now that he's able to push it inside out very effectively as well, I mean, you can see in the results, obviously, that the man's playing at a high level.
Yeah, it's a great result for him.
Yeah, great result. And do we have any other PPA stuff to talk about? Beautiful venue, really good stuff. Crowds were filing in. The numbers were good. I believe I overheard someone saying from the PPA staff saying that that is the best event in terms of ticket sales. So moving in the right direction. Great first event. Quality stuff.
Yeah, nice. Just we could touch on a couple more results. It was, speaking of Dill, him and J-Dub went out to Pat Smith, who's, we reignited an old flame here with Pat and Jay, which is fun to see because they did well.
Reunited and it feels so good. No, I love it. You could tell Pat healthy in the lower body, the hips and the knees looking pretty good. He's always had the heavy hands and the raw power. And Jay also, I think, is a paddle situation has gotten better for him. And he just looked to have a little more life in his hands than, a few months ago. So I know they were down big in that game 2 against the kids at 9-2. And it was just a phenomenal comeback. And, for a team that is practically making at the end of the year 2 out of 3 championship Sundays in men's doubles, just not something that can happen, even if your opponents are playing very well to squander that 9-2 lead in game 2. But you got to hand it to the Wichita boys. They played well.
Yeah, I mean, good result, and hopefully, it's just nice. I think it goes back to, I've got a strong belief in men's doubles anyways, all doubles, mixed too, that the long-standing partnerships are the only way to stay consistently on the podium. Like, Riley got a podium here, but he hasn't been a mainstay in terms of the second half of last year. Whereas before that, he was always on with Matt. So I think you look at Pablo and Fed. I think the long running partnerships lends itself to better results, more consistent results.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why, everyone loves it when apparently they do a drinking game when I'm in the commentary booth, how many times I bring up Deckel. But Deckel had a merry-go-round of partners, and he's got the most solid, established, good energy partner right now in Tyson McGuffin. So I hope that they can do a bit of damage this year and possibly sneak onto some podiums, maybe make a handful of championship Sundays. Don't know if that'll happen, but he's solidified now. And I agree with you. I just think of course, every single tournament, every single week that goes by, the edges are tighter and tighter physically. We always talk about finding a way to get some value to your team, and being in a consistent partnership and knowing what your partner is going to do is a great way to do that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And
hey, let's shift it over to the ladies here.
Yeah.
Rohrabacher and Anna Bright, man, they're playing some ball. They are just rolling everything, lots of power. They almost look like carbon copies of each other with their type of stroke. But I am very impressed with what they did and kind of their game style. And I also think Megan Dazan and Etta Wright looked pretty good in their matches as well. Etta looked like she had some extra spring in her step. She was kind of in and out of tournaments at the end of 2023. So that would be great if we have a couple teams that can, I know they didn't win against CP and Anna Lee, but they were in a reasonable position, and the level of points was at a very high level.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch all of them. I think, I was really impressed with Megan. I think her midcourt game and soft stuff has gotten so much better. She's always had really insane raw power on the women's side, but would just make some errors here and there, and now it's cleaned that up, and she's playing super clean, and her and Etta will be, they're going to be a tough out in any tournament if they keep playing together.
Yeah, and so, length is great for leverage and power, but if you can keep the hands soft, it's great for the midcourt and the back of the court as well. So that's a physically imposing team. They're both standing around 5'10", a lot of length, a lot of power, and there's absolute reason to believe that in their raw tools that they could make a push to possibly challenge Anna Lee and CP, and that's what everyone wants. I don't want anyone to lose or have bad runs, but if you got 3 or 4 or 5 teams that can beat anyone at any moment, that's just better for everyone involved, and makes the viewing just better.
Yeah, we don't talk a ton about the dominance of players, but just because it's repetitive but dude, Anna Lee, another Triple Crown is just wild stuff, man. It's wild, and I think the gap's getting smaller, which is also making it that much more impressive as well, because she's a competitor, man. She's for being that age, and for seeing some of the quote unquote tough times that she's had when she's lost, like, doesn't happen that often, and like to pull out some of the wins she pulls out, it's impressive. She's a tough competitor, and winning all 3 events, dude. I don't care if it's just hard. It's just hard no matter how much better you are than everybody else anyways. It's still hard.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the mental toughness, she honestly might be the best defensive player, the best offensive player, and the most mentally tough player on tour. And of course, you talk about her partner, Catherine, who is as consistent as they come. She never misses, incredible defense. Maybe not the firepower of some of the other ladies, but an absolute rock. I think Anna Lee's better at her than defense. Like there is no holes. There is no holes. There is nothing. I don't care if it's forehand, backhand, midcourt, back of the court, kitchen line. There is no weaknesses in Anna Lee's game. And obviously that shows in the results, especially in women's doubles. I think it's something obscene, like 54 or 55-0, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. Impressive stuff. It's insane. We'll see how many Triple Crowns she gets this year, but I'm not betting against it. I'll tell you that.
No, I think I saw a line, 12.5. The line is 12.5 Triple Crowns for Anna Lee in the 2024 season. And I guess how many exact events she plays of the 25 PPAs is a big factor on that line. But a wild that the line being set is over double digits for Triple Crowns.
If she plays 25, I'm definitely going over.
Oh, that's easy money if she plays
definitely
25.
going over.
It might be over if she plays 16. Jeez, come on. It's totally ridiculous, and you can't unsee it. It's just too good.
Yeah. Last couple points here, Adam, because I think they're important, and I've posted a bit about them on Twitter. And I think a great comparison right now for Major League Pickleball and even the PPA is the National Women's Soccer League, which is it's a professional women's soccer league in the U.S. and they're getting real money. They got a $240 million media rights deal, combined with a few different networks, I believe CBS and a couple others. That's $60 million a year, and Office Sports, who I believe Jason Stein is a part of, either board member or founder, I'm not sure, but they posted that the most lucrative contract and that league history was just signed after that $60 million a year deal was announced, and that contract is worth $2.5 million over 5 years, meaning each year it's a $500,000 contract. So the fact that we have, I would guess, 10 plus players over the 500K mark for a league and sport that has no media rights deal and not a ton of revenue is bonkers.
Yeah, that doesn't quite add up. And that's, I think, even more than the numbers that you stated, it's the fact that it's post signing the media rights deal. And how I understand it, I think, is that is the end goal of pickleball, is to get one of those deals. And we're already throwing out wild numbers before that. I'm not great at this stuff. I don't really know how the business side, I'm not as locked in as maybe I should be, but yeah, I know numbers, and I'm pretty good at mental math, and that doesn't quite add up from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. And obviously I think, you're talking about a lot more players in women's soccer, bigger teams,
diluted. Yeah.
Diluted. But I think that's a fair and reasonable contract for. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, I think it's probably high. I think the top contract in our sport right now should be probably $250K. I think the vast majority of players, that were signed should be sub $100K. They should, if we're even talking about salaries, right? I think if you have a tour, which the PPA has a tour, you're signing all these players to guaranteed money, basically salaries. And I don't know many other tours that have guaranteed money. You just play for prize money. So it's a weird world we're living in. I think the salaries make sense if you're the league model. If you're MLP, that makes sense. I get it. That's what it should be. But for the tour stuff, salaries are just strange. But regardless, I think it's all too high. I think what we should do is blank canvas it. Let's get realistic. Let's get those, the top 10. You guys are going to hate to hear it, I know.
Right. Yeah, like you want to hear some people crying and yelling and screaming. Come on.
That's the way to do it. But let's get realistic. You guys you're not worth that right now. I'm not. Nobody. No, none of us are. We're not. There's no money being generated outside of like paddle sales and like on the amateur side. But we got to bring it back to reality. And the people like me and the people that have lower contracts than me, like we're I don't want to say we're not the problem. I'm probably, in the whole grand scheme of things, I think my contract's probably pretty market rate right now. I think the top 10, top 15, et cetera, are the ones that are way overblown and the ones that are really costing us, the true viability of the future of the sport.
Yeah, and I think really the biggest disconnect, maybe value and contract, is kind of the heart of that, like ranked 10 to 25. So like maybe the even though it's kind of wild numbers, those top couple that at least they are the faces, the ones making deep runs, the ones that are always on the live stream. But there's quite a few players that are, middling at best and rarely making later stages of tournaments and getting a pretty penny. So
Yeah.
It does seem wild. And if you think of where the revenue is coming from, the revenue is coming from balls and paddles and gear, and that's where it's coming from. It's not from ticket sales and whatever else. So if we're talking a standard pro pickleball's players, where their money is coming from, it makes a lot of sense that 15, 20, 25% of that money is coming from salary, and the heart of their money is coming from endorsement deals and paddle contracts, because that's where the actual revenue is. And that makes more sense to me. So it's, yeah, I mean, something's got to give at some point. I don't know if we're right exactly there or not, but the numbers just don't add up, buddy.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not to say you can't float the money, right? Like, which is obviously what they're trying to do. They're trying to float the money, float the salaries, and, in hopes of, probably doing it backwards, right? In hopes of getting the media rights deal versus getting the media rights deal first, and then having the cash for the salaries. But not to say it can't work. It's just, get that sales team to work on the media deal, guys.
Yeah, man. What, Jason Stein? Where is this guy? He's everywhere. I mean, he's in MLP. He's in the Northwest Soccer League. I didn't even know about. I had some wine and some truffles at his restaurant in New York. I mean, this dude's just dipping his toe in everything. He really is.
I don't know if he's in Northwest Soccer or.
I thought that's what you said.
No, Front Office Sports. He's involved with that, and they posted that article. But just interesting stuff. Let's finish off, Adam, because I know people like this. How can a player get better today when they go play rec?
So what, you made a little post. You were talking about you're only allowed to hit hard if you hit down on the ball.
Yeah, no attack.
Rec.
Yeah, no attacks unless you're hitting the ball from above the net and you can hit down on it. It's just a good restraint, like, training tool.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's something that's just so easy for me. And I heard a bunch of people respond to your comments saying that it's easy
Impossible,
in theory, and then you get out there and it just doesn't quite work out. So I will say this, and I think we've mentioned this on a previous episode. So for me, I'm gonna go with don't worry about winning rec. Hit 2/3 to the stronger player in rec. Now, you can't just completely freeze out the guy. We want everyone to get some touches in rec, but I say it must be above 50% if you are playing a lopsided team in rec pickleball. Even if you lose because of it, play over 50%, more like 66%, to the more talented player in rec. It is, man, some of these people are just so obsessed with winning that it really delays their development in their rec play and the situations they get into. Try to not worry as much about winning and worry about getting better, especially if you're a tournament player. Do the winning in the tournament, not in the practice leading up to it.
Yeah, and I think it's so good, Adam. I love that one. And I think what some of the players are, because I play in these groups. I play in groups with 3 other players that aren't pro level often, because I haven't had that good of practice. So I think what the opponents are often worried about is that if they hit to me, I'm going to attack everything and flick. And when all I actually want to do is just like work on being solid, making a bunch of dinks, having extended longer points. So like if you're playing to the stronger player, and if you are the stronger player, work on, of course you can beat weaker players with your attacks. That's like, you're not proving anything. You're not solving anything for that. Work on getting good touches, movement, solid dinks, extending the points, and they also be less afraid to hit to you because you're not just pulling everything.
Right. And that's a good note for, as the best player, notice if you are getting a good chunk of the balls, you don't have to speed up everything, but it really makes you want to when you're getting 10% of the shots to go for it. Yeah. So it's all a balance. So if everyone is playing their role, whether you're the worst player on the court or the best player on the court for a rec practice situation, if one person doesn't do the role right, it kind of goes to shit. And if everyone is kind of committed to playing a certain way, pushing the ball to the right amount of frequencies, to the right amount of players with the right shot, everything flows better and everyone gets more out of it.
Yeah, 100%. That's a phenomenal tip. That's you should copyright.
Hey, Rob, talk for 30.
I think we're good, dude. I think we're good. 59.
I'm about to go grab this baby.
Oh yeah,
the baby hasn't been on. We need the baby on. Here we go.
We need the baby on. Let's go, baby time. Little AJ, this is going to be a treat. We have not had a little AJ appearance in quite a while, and I know, well, I don't know, but allegedly babies grow pretty quick, and this is my little running monologue about babies, which I have no experience in, but very excited to see little AJ here. And stream of consciousness running out. Thank you, Adam. You saved me.
Hey,
Oh
buddy
my
boy.
gosh, dude! I said they grow fast, and this looks like this doesn't look like an infant anymore. It looks like a 3-year-old.
Look at this guy.
So
Is that
cute.
not the sweetest thing you've ever seen right there, Bubba?
Oh, dude, wide-eyed, just bushy tail. That's some blonde hair. It's no surprise, I guess, but I guess it's your kid.
Hey, it's been 10 seconds. He's already about to start freaking out. You take it away, buddy. All right.
I hope he poops on you right now. All right. I never say this, but this feels like now that I have the opportunity to say is one, shout out to Selkirk for sponsoring the show, for supporting Adam and I, for supporting the podcast. Thank you to the Dink for publishing our podcast. Couldn't do it without you guys because all we do is talk and then send it off to you, and you do all the other beautiful stuff to get this live. And what I also don't ever say is like, subscribe, comment on this video if you're on YouTube. If you're on audio platform, leave us a lovely 5-star review if you want. It can be 4-star here, 3. It can be 1-star. Maybe you hate us. That's fine too. Don't care about that either. But saying something's better than saying nothing, I think. Okay, I'm done, Adam. You're back.
Done.
Good? Bye-bye. Because you know why?
Why?
Because it feels right.
It feels right.
Legendary.